Hey there guys, so in this video I just wanted to lay it all out there for you, give you a calisthenics routine that you can use from home. It takes about 40 minutes, you can perform it 3 times a week, full body, that will get you some good results. And the concept behind this workout, the kind of design philosophy, was to use exercises that sit really nicely on that difficulty curve. So these are what I've found to be some of the most effective calisthenics movements for most people, in my experience, stacked back to back in a full body routine. For the warm-up, we're going to be doing shadow boxing. So the first move we're going to start with, I think, is a perfect example of what I'm talking about. It's the elevated one-arm push-up. So what you're basically going to do is you're doing a one-arm push-up, but you're on a raised platform with your hand, which obviously is going to make it much easier. This means that most people can now rep out reps of one-arm push-ups when they otherwise wouldn't be able to. It's still much more difficult than a regular push-up, but it's also much easier than a regular one-arm push-up. And the great thing about it, of course, is that we can make it much easier or more difficult just by altering how high up the elevation is. So we can do it on a chair, we can do it against a wall if you want to make it really easy. And the one-arm push-up is such a brilliant exercise. Not only is it a great exercise for the chest, the triceps, because you're putting a higher proportion of your weight onto one side, meaning that it's basically nearly twice as difficult as a regular push-up. But at the same time, you've got all of the, proprioceptive challenge. You need to protract the scapula at the top of the movement, push through the scapula. Continue pushing down even when your arm is fully extended. You need to keep your core nice and rigid and fight the resistance in that rotational plane that wants to twist you down to the other side. Get to an elevation where you can do about 8 repetitions, then do 2 or 3 sets of that. So the next exercise, this is very much once again the same principle of finding a move that sits somewhere in between a very advanced exercise, such as a planche push-up, which I can't really do, but I can give it an admirable attempt, I'm getting there, and a dip, a regular dip. What we have here is something equivalent to a tuck planche dip. It's not really that because we're not going to go into full tuck planche. You'll get it, you'll see. So you want to get 2 dip bars. If you don't have dip bars, that's not a problem. You can use 2 chairs. I'm going to get into dip position. What I'm going to do is I'm going to rotate my body and tuck my knees underneath. So I'm like this. Now, a full tuck planche would be straight arms like that, very strict. We're just trying to get the knees underneath and the chest as parallel to the ground as possible. And then we're going to bash out dips like this. Now, if you can normally do, like I can, 30, 40, 45 bodyweight dips, then you're going to be able to do this only for 8, 10, 12 reps, and we're going to get a nice stretch on too. We're going to go deep into that movement so you can really feel it on the pecs. Meaning, once again, if you're not all about repping out tons of dips, you can do this instead. Now, another option, of course, is to do weighted dips. I personally just don't gel that much with weighted calisthenics. I love it in principle, I think it works great, but I just can't find a setup that's comfortable and convenient for me. The hassle of getting loaded up with different amounts of weight for each exercise, the way it chafes, the way it feels like it might pinch your crotch in a painful way. I just can't subscribe to doing that regularly as much as I've tried. Stuff like this, for me, works much better. And if you struggle to get into this position, well, then you can just place your legs behind you on something to support you and keep you in that position lightly. You're going to do this one to failure, to technical failure, for just, I think 2 sets is going to be fine for this one. Give yourself a minute in between to make sure you're fully recovered for the next round. Okay, next up we need something to target the shoulders predominantly. And for this we're going to be doing a variation on pike push-ups using a wall to, assist us, but it's not really assisting. I call them wall-assisted pike push-ups, but this wall actually makes it harder because what you're doing here is using the wall to get your legs up high behind you. And I really struggle with wall-assisted handstand push-ups because my feet drag up and down the wall and it's just uncomfortable. Whereas with these, what you can do is bend your knees as you're going higher or lower or coming in and out more. You can make this a more vertical movement or a more horizontal movement. And I mean, you're probably not going to need that many reps of this. You can probably do this for 3 sets of maybe 4 or 5. Maybe even you can do this for just 2 sets because you've already done stuff that's hitting the shoulders with the one-arm push-ups and the dips. So just see how it fits into your routine. But basically it looks like this and you can adjust it to your needs. You guys have also seen me talk about doing pike push-ups using stairs or something to elevate your legs. That's obviously an option. You don't need the parallettes as well. They just let me go in a slightly deeper range of motion. And of course, this is going to help you build up to movements like handstand push-ups, handstands, which are really cool. So make sure you're really elevating the scapula at the end there, pushing through with your arms straight at the end of the movement, not just getting to the top and then moving back down again. So in some recent videos, I've been talking about the benefits of doing super high reps of basic calisthenics, things like push-ups, dips, pull-ups, for as many reps as you can. Some people in the comments were a bit upset, saying like they'd heard the exact opposite advice on other YouTube videos and now they don't know what to believe. Like, should you be doing heavy a couple of times a week, or should you be doing high rep multiple times a week? And I just want to reassure you guys that this information isn't contradictory. In fact, I really like, the Mike Mentzer approach. I think that can work really well as well. These aren't contradictory methods. They're just different ways of achieving slightly different things. They both cause muscle growth, they both build strength, etc., but in slightly different ratios and through different mechanisms. One builds more metabolic stress, and by the way, metabolic stress even triggers mechanical tension and includes mechanical tension to get to that point in the first place. You can't separate these things out. This isn't a battle of which wins. The real answer is to use as many different strategies as possible. That I know can be a bit overwhelming, and that's why I made this video, because I know that somewhere in the middle is what's going to be most appealing to a lot of people. So all these exercises are things that you can take away and do yourself, and they should build you lots of strength and athleticism. By the way, guys, if you'd like to see a workout using entirely high rep bodyweight training, which is closer to what I typically do predominantly these days, then let me know in the comments and I'll share that as well. But I think I've already explained most of those exercises, which is why I chose to go for this instead. Alternatively, of course, you can check out my ebook and training program, Super Functional Training 2.0. That is my most in-depth training program, not just a sample one, but something you can follow for a number of weeks, months, years. Has lots of progressions, and that utilizes a combination of this style training and the high rep stuff, so that you go from harder movements to higher repetition, easier movements in a single set, really blasting the muscle from every possible angle, both in terms of stimulating growth and in terms of performance. I'll leave a link to that in the description down below. You can get it. It comes with over 2 hours of instructional video and 80+ page ebook. So yeah, check that out if you're interested. You guys have heard me talk about how much I like high repetitions of bodyweight rows, and in the last video I talked about bending your legs so you could do higher rep ranges. But if you want to make the movement harder, more like a conventional resistance exercise, then place your legs on something higher, move your arms so they're lower down your body, and then perform reps like this. Ooh, that feels much more like a regular horizontal row. Going to 8 to 12 reps. Position the chair height and your body in relation to the bar, somewhere that allows you to do this. Obviously, if you don't have a dip bar, again, you can use the underside of a table. You can even use a bed sheet. If you shut them in a door with a knot, pull them against the frame, so put it opposite to the way that the door would open. You can anchor your body this way, and then you can place your legs up on something higher like a chair. If not, then you know what, pull-ups, they're actually nicely in that rep range for most people, so you can do those anyways. For biceps, you guys know I love my goblet curls, but we're talking purely calisthenics for this one. So the exercise I'm going to suggest now is assisted one-armed chin-ups. Now, you might not be interested in getting a one-arm chin-up, but that's not the point, because we're not even going to try and use good technique for one-arm chin-up. We're going to use good technique to just target the biceps. So you're going to hold on like that. You're going to support yourself wherever. And don't worry, we'll talk about the non-dip bar version in a moment. You can just put your legs anywhere. And then you're going to use mostly that arm to curl yourself up. This one just to help you as much as you need. Now, this one's going to require a little bit in the way of mind-muscle connection and, being honest with yourself. But you can really feel the bicep working quickly there. And it doesn't matter, because we're going to go to failure anyways, so you can make it easier and do more, you can make it harder and do fewer. And you're just going to need 2 sets, because we've done the rows, which have also targeted the biceps to an extent. I haven't done anything purely for the triceps, although you can do. I really like one-armed tricep dips, for example. Reason being, though, just that the triceps are really getting hit with the other 3 pushing exercises, whereas the biceps are getting only somewhat hit by the rows. So yeah, people like big arms. I think big arms are functional. This is good exercise for that. Okay, now to continue the theme, we're going to do a variation on a difficult leg exercise to make it a little bit easier. That being the pistol squat. We're just going to elevate one leg, removing the mobility challenge, at which point a pistol squat you might find is surprisingly easy, especially if you hold on to something like a railing so it's not even a balance challenge. That'll let you rep out a bunch of reps, and in doing so you'll get a great stimulus from this simple bodyweight exercise. I recommend doing 3 sets of these for whatever takes you to failure. Here there's just kind of one level, so once you start doing 15 and above, then you can make it more difficult, but for now I think this is going to be more than enough for me. For this workout, I highly recommend wearing barefoot shoes, and I recommend the brand Vivo Barefoot, who are today's sponsor, because I think they make the best quality barefoot shoes. They last for ages, they're really comfortable, they look actually really stylish, so I get lots of compliments on them. At the same time though, this is going to transform your training in a lot of ways. For one, they're lighter. This allows you to get into a lot of these positions and challenge the muscles you're trying to target, rather than just having big clod-hopping shoes to move around. Also keeps you lighter on your feet, lets you move quicker for things like the kicking. Wearing regular shoes with a thick heel, this actually means that you're not challenging the full range of motion because your heel is elevated. It's much easier to get into that deep squat. You're losing out on that mobility, and you're losing out on strength and power from the bottom position of the squat. On top of that, you've got the added balance that you get from being able to feel the ground underneath, because minimal shoes, barefoot shoes like these, have a thin sole so you can feel the ground. There's just a million and one different reasons to wear barefoot shoes like this when you're training. And Pioneer viewers can get 20% off a purchase of Vivo Barefoot shoes by using code PioneerVivo20 at checkout. Link in the description down below. Thanks again to Vivo Barefoot for sponsoring this video. Back to the routine. Next we're going to do horse stance squat. This is like it sounds. We're going to get into horse stance and then squat. We're not going to worry too much about how wide our legs are apart. The point of this is just that we've got some movement in the frontal plane. In all my programs I like to get some movement in the frontal plane, or at least some stimulus in the frontal plane, and some in the rotational plane. We did the one-armed push-ups earlier, preventing our bodies from twisting, training the rotational plane. This in a similar way, we're not moving side to side, but there is a side-to-side element. We're opening up the hips and we're strengthening ourselves in that way. So this is a really good one to include. Even though the resistance isn't that high, you're going to find that it's uncomfortable due to the challenge from the mobility. And in this case, it's just going to boost overall athleticism. The fact that this is tricky without weights is why we know we need it. Of course, you can add weights, you can hold a kettlebell, that'll make it even harder, and it'll help you get into an even deeper squat. On the way down, focus on rotating the thighs outwards and keeping them there, training that nice external rotation as well. It's going to help you with things like kicks, prevent back pain, all that good stuff. And you might find yourself getting lower with each rep. You can do that for 2 sets of 8 to 10. We're not going to failure here, there's no need. Now for those of you with a kettlebell, what I'd love you to do here is to end with kettlebell swings, because we need a hip hinge movement. You guys know that one of the bodyweight hip hinge movements I like is the pike liftoff, but that's definitely getting more into the advanced realm. So what we're going to do instead is just a one-legged glute raise, like so. And we're just raising that out, driving through the glutes. Now the point of this exercise again isn't so much that it's a strength exercise. This is about proprioception and reawakening the glutes. If you want something a little bit more explosive, then you can always try jumping step-ups. So you're going to launch yourself up in the air from your leg. That really drives through the glutes, but it doesn't really train the hip hinge in the same way. I say, the ideal scenario is that you just invest in a kettlebell, something to think about. But anyways guys, that's the workout. I hope you guys found this useful and interesting. If you did, then please consider leaving a like and sharing it around. Let me know in the comments what you'd like to see next. Would you like me to do a higher rep range bodyweight circuit or routine similar to this one, but with a focus on higher rep ranges? Or is there something else you'd like to see? Maybe a mobility routine? Let me know in the comments down below. Thank you so much for watching this one, guys. I'll see you next time. Bye for now.